What makes it... Oh my god! They are, from what I can tell, a Mongol spammer. Let's see what they've got in a Mongol-French matchup. So RT, of course, playing as the French, and Hanfi, as expected, on the Mongols. Hanfi is reasonably good at the game. That's how I now categorize people in the top 200, because we've got this elitist mentality in our brains at the moment. Hanfi is 162nd. That's a pretty respectable figure. Donai, in the meantime, is crawling up. He's up in 40th now. I think at one stage I saw RT in the top 30s. Maybe I'm just dreaming. Maybe he's hoping I'm dreaming right now and this can become a reality, because Artie's definitely been on the improve. We've seen him take down some top-level players. I think the most notable one in this Road to World LoL performance so far has to be his victory over Wham that looks so decisive. Although messy, definitely decisive. So I'm kind of excited to see what he can do as the weeks go on. You know, I was a little bit worried at one stage we might lose Artie back to the realm of Age of Empires 3. I know, you know, based on what he was saying publicly, that he was a little bit uninspired by the metas that were developing, but I gotta say, it kind of makes sense that he's maybe feeling reinvigorated. I'd say the metas right now are more aggressive. They're more feudal and castle age based. And I think that seems more where Artie's comfortable from what I've seen. By the way he plays games, like, this is the type of guy that likes those kind of quicker timings. I'd love to get what his opinion is, but I don't feel like Artie's a player that strikes me as enjoying Imperial late game that much. There are some players that have thrived off the basics of that. Like Beastie is the most obvious one that absolutely adores those hyper late game states. But Artie to me is more like a 20, 25 minute and done. You know, you'll have a fun time with him, but he isn't going to keep you rocking for hours. You get what I mean? Anyway, let's focus on this game, and let's focus on how this is going to start, because Hanfi is looking to open up with the Rax play into a cheeky little outpost rush. Well, well, well. It's almost fitting when I searched data on this player, he said that he plays almost always Mongols. And he knows exactly what you got to do when you're the Mongols. Oh, yes, you got to open up with a cheeky outpost or two. Meanwhile, back at base, RT. One thing I'm curious to see, like, because I love to just kind of log it in my brain, because if there's something I can remember a lot of as French, because you see so much of it, like player to player, is whether they like going for the mill midway through the School of Cavalry build or after it's complete. I'm of the opinion that it's just better to get the wheelbarrow researched like a third of the way through your construct of the School of Cavalry. But I've noticed some players like still deviating back towards the I'll wait until it's all done. And the only reason you really do that is because you should in theory be able to get your knights out like, you know, 10 seconds sooner, I'd say. I don't think it's like that great of a gain to slow down your economy as much as you would by being missing wheelbarrow for like an extra minute and a half. But anyway, School of Cavalry on the way. 4 people building up as expected, and we'll see if he pulls to the mill. He can already afford the mill itself, but he hasn't got enough gold yet. But the way this works, by design, is like usually when you're about halfway through, you should have enough gold accrued to get wheelbarrow. So you should start building the mill, and there we go. Yeah, I like Artie's build. I like this build. This build is so much better. It kind of, like, I'm still scratching my head and being kind of nitpicky about when I watch players wait until the School of Cavalry is complete, because I'll look at their gold, and they have enough gold to start their first night, but then they also have enough gold to have afforded wheelbarrow in like the next 5 seconds. And I'm talking about a situation where they don't even build the mill by that point. Early push in, Hanfi able to stab RT off, and now a frustrating state of affairs, folks, because this denial, this interruption is quite big if you can keep it up. Look where RT is right now. Look how close he is to having wheelbarrow. That's why he's going to recommit. One villager will have to pull back. He can stick on this long enough to get the required gold, but he's going to have 2 villagers that need to go into intensive care as a result. And of course, you are the French, so you have no way of giving that care early on. What? Whoops. Oh, RT. He didn't feel he could commit still. I wonder if you could have got the 4 gold and got the villager out there. Maybe it would have been a bit tight without wheelbarrow, but now as a result, like, you've got enough for 1 night, but nothing else. I guess he could just build the knight and now head into the base of Hanfi, but oh my god. We were so fixated about the gold. We didn't even notice this outpost had already gone up. I was wondering where the villager was at. Hanfi is already encapsulating him. This is going to get a little bit uncomfortable. I guess it makes sense that RT's the type of player that want to go for that first night. My concern is whether he's going to get any true value out of it. Actually, now having Hanfi move out into the gold like this, I wonder if that's a detail RT scouted out early on. And that's why he's going for the night, is that he expected his opponent's going to have to be out in no man's land. And Well, if there's something we know about Mongols, when they build spears, they don't build them to defend themselves. They always build them to just rush out towards their opponent's base. And speaking of rushing out, Artie now moving the villagers and the scouts out. This should be a max out of like 4 to 5 scouts. I quite like that build if you're worried about the outpost, but he might not even need that considering this is only the second tower. And the first one doesn't really block anything you care about right now. Let's let the village up. I don't think you even try to... Nope, it's not even worth it anymore. Just cancel it, move on. In fact, Shiv's out. That villager's going to go down, and the aggression is offset. So Hanfi now delayed. Will start to make his way up. 8 people to build up the Deer Stone. Meantime, Knight now coming out from Artie. Will get stabbed in the face a few times as he ignorantly runs past, but he doesn't care about these guys. He's not actually focused on defending his base right now. He wants to get aggressive. This is where Hanfi's got to make a choice. Do I pull a second villager? Can I still block quick enough, or do I need to make my way up? And I think, honestly, if you see the archery range, your call is don't pull a villager at all. Like, if you had a villager coming now, yeah, send them back. There we go. It's very difficult to commit continuously to outpost spams when your opponents start building archery ranges. Like, sometimes we'll see players, like, the most notably Kazva does this a lot, where he's like, oh, the villager didn't work out, I'm going to pull, like, 4 more. And the reason he'll do it is like, and the reason it'll work is because his opponent doesn't have range composites, so he's just got melee to try and get bogged down. It's much more difficult to just rush down these villages with melee units at this stage in the game than if you have like 4 or 5 archers. If you think about the fact that building these outposts take 45 seconds, but with 1 villager, and these archers are going to attack you every 1.5 second for 5 damage, you can see how quickly you can just end up losing a vast majority of your eco count. It's like up now coming out. So Artie extracting a little bit of value from this Knight. Just trying to keep his opponent on the defensive because now he wants to be the tempo aggressor. This is usually how the dynamics at play come out in the Mongol versus French matchup. Mongols dictate Dark Age, French dictate Feudal. Then Mongols will try to dictate Castle. Wait, did I say... Yeah, Dark Age Feudal. Yeah, and they'll try to dictate Castle based on the logic that they tend to access Castle a lot quicker than the French. But the way you can actually leverage this, something that I've been seeing less frequently at the moment, is when you're playing Feudal versus Feudal with Mongols French, you can go into the Magadai. The cool thing about what Don Artie's done here is he's completely just stripped that ability to be a reality. When you go archers like this, Magadai are useless. They just get peppered down. So we're not going to see Magadai play, and it means that the Knights aren't directly counted in this matchup right now. Hanfi's win condition is Castle. He has to reach Castle. He has to do it fast. If he tries to play a prolonged Feudal, it's going to end badly for him. And the concern is if Hanfi knows who Don Artie is, if you know who this Don is, you know he's going to force you to hang around a Feudal. You know this is the type of person who's willing to drop a blacksmith and take a ganders at a good old siege engineering world to allow for the rams early on. And that's going to force you to directly engage with this before you can reach your true win condition now as the Mongols, which is Castle. Even the scouts coming in. I like this detail from Artie. We talked about building up the scouts because usually it's a good move up against the outposts as there's a free way of burning them down as you heal over time. But now they can transition to be a frontline unit. Think about the way that the Rus used the scouts for a very long time. Like, you built a lot of scouts early on, you had horse archers only. The whole idea is that you body blocked and you just absorb damage. That's what they do here. They're actually phenomenal body blockers in this situation. They're so underrated for it as well. It's a 70 food unit for 110 health. And it slowly heals over time. So if it doesn't get killed and you micro correctly, they always last. And on top of that, it's a torture. It's a fast-moving torching unit. And that's exactly why you keep stacking them up. In fact, are we getting pro scouts as well? Yep, it's coming out. I was about to say, when he's still coming up past 5, that's when I'm starting to wonder. And it looks like he was looking for the deer, but they're to the north side, so he's not going to get them over there. I think he was planning to wrap around to the back of Hanfi's base, but a little bit too risky, folks. Like, if you try to dive in and grab these deer, remember you're coming out much slower, and you're up against Yam movement speed. This play maybe works if the deer stone and the outpost weren't here. So if, for example, all the Yam was condensed towards the TC side, you could probably sneak in and out, and the spearman wouldn't keep moving fast. But you can see the AoE on this thing. It reaches out to the deer, so definitely gap close upon you. Instead, Archer's now starting to reach in. Trying to snipe out 1 or 2 villagers. And oh, the Cardinal's in. Hanfi being greedy here. Doesn't want to pull the villagers back, and my god, he hasn't got room to pull them all back. Will finally do so. Good guy Artie right there. Killing off a few villagers so there was enough room inside the TC for the rest of them. One night. Oh. I think D'Artagnan is done here. And RT middle fingers it. He's like, screw it. If I'm going down, I'm taking your leader with me. Good luck with that. He'll easily get away. And it looks like the aggression has actually like pulled up from RT because he's going up instead. This is a pretty crafty maneuver. Not many Mongol players would expect this, but RT, because he sees the recommitment in his spears as well as the horsemen early on, he feels confident that he can race towards castle first, and he's read it right. This is a very different approach, by the way. Most players, when they play the French, they try to hold feudal for a very long time for both players, up to like 15 minutes. I call it holding hostage. And then the more common players to go for a TC off the back of that. Not castle age blindly like this. Uh-oh. Has he got textiles? No. I actually think Hamfi didn't attack the villagers because he thought that RT had wheelbarrow there. Because if you attack the villagers, you can body block them off and probably kill 2 or 3. It sounds like a small quantity, but like any little bit counts right now, especially when you're now playing from behind. And getting 25 food and 25 gold, like you would have got that anyway. So yeah, I think that was genuinely, he didn't register that those villagers were moving too slow. And you could see how slow they were. Like honestly, if we looped back to that, if we replayed that, you'd feel like it was going in slow-mo. And we've all had that type of moment where you're like, I'm just trying to get the villagers out. I'm just trying to get the villagers out. They just barely move. Step readout now coming out from Hamfi. Like that he played on the deer and started to extend his base and wrap it around. I think the passes just weren't cutting it. You can see like he was slow to get them up. I think the strike in earlier by RT really set Hamfi back because he didn't have the appropriate amount of wood being gathered to get the pasture up quick enough. And you can see the result of that. Like he's not got enough room for all the food gatherers. That's why he shifted people over on the deer. Will now make his way up to castle, but does so from behind in a matchup against the French. And it's a matchup where now, like, what are you going to build? You don't really want to be going Lancers here. That's a completely discounted hand. The French Knights will just rout you. Oh, speaking of the French looking to rout you, movement out, looking onto the goal line here. Shiv's out from the villagers as well, and these horsemen just not doing enough damage. The scouts are just able to clash and push them away. And this is the power. Like, if you don't actually wipe these scouts out, they slowly heal. And every time you go into a fight, if you don't directly target these knights out, you're going to probably find yourself auto-aggroing onto the cannon fodder instead. He's like, well, I'm getting gold one way or the other. Slowly stacking up the big boy knights now, as they have already been vetted up. And remember that he did go for the guild hall, so he's pretty set for like a long game. It's kind of funny, Artie was like, the only time my games go like an hour is when we go down to 5 villages each 20 minutes in, referencing a phenomenal game between him and Avali. But the reality is like, you know, he's insulating himself for it just in case by going for this guild hall. In fact, I'm a little bit surprised. Like the true Artie I know, he would have went for the Royal Institute and tried to end the game faster, but he's pretty confident, he's pretty comfortable. And understandably so, like he's clearly ahead right now. And the only way you can easily recover this if you're Hamfi is if you find a way to wiggle into a secondary TC. That's not going to happen before you go for prayer tent. And this is a dangerous choice by Mongol players when they're up against the French because you don't necessarily control the midfield. The only reason it seems half decent right now for Hamfi is that Artie is sat in his base. But I don't think Hamfi has given logical thought as to why Artie's been sitting in his base. Even when he saw the tech up, he didn't like respect the fact that that's the reason Artie was on the defensive. And it means by the time you start getting these first monks out, these shamans out in the midfield, I think you're going to have lost it. Because you haven't got your first lancers out yet. You haven't even got outposts up to allow you to maneuver around the French army. Here we go, first lancer starting to come out. I believe there is no archers anymore, Advardi. And one archery range is not even being used. And there's still a bunch of spearmen here defending for Hamfi. Now, Hamfi could, in theory, still pick up relics, but he'd have to do so one at a time. He can't just spread out and take 2 or 3 each time. That's when Artie will strike you down and kill off a lot of your shamans. And I feel like whenever I watch him, like it's not often I see him going into his own religious buildings, so I wouldn't be surprised if he just doesn't see the relics as a key condition for this game at all. Even though he's got the guild hall, which can insulate him against late game, I think for Artie, he wants this game over midway through castle. If Imperial happens, it should happen because his opponent really screwed up and threw away an army, or he screwed up by trying to do Imperial when Artie was just trying to bulk mass forces. One villager will go down. Artie Pushing in, wants to deny the outpost. The outposts are key here, folks. If they go up, then of course you can start diving in freely as Hamfi. And the French Knights won't be able to react quick enough. Mining camp now being targeted. Hamfi will peel back. Spears aren't going to block him out. Arbitrary is now coming out into the field. And interesting choice. Artie's going to take the fight. Spreads out. And understandably so. It's only a hardened spearman right now. They haven't been upgraded to veterancy. Let's dive in. Need to be careful. Hamfi. Somewhat baited by this. The gold on the north side is freely just being mined by Artie. Knights now clashing again. Scouts, they could absorb a lot of initial fire here and give the backstab opportunity. And there's the wraparound now. The TC assisting with an extra little bit of firing. Garrison's going to come out to add even more arrows into the fray. Backs off from the spears, wraps around on the south side. The Khan is also being brought low. He's sniped out and down. Hanfi, his army's going to get wiped by this. The French Knights are just too dominant in this situation. Not enough spearmen and mistakes made. Hanfi never upgraded these spears. Had he done so, this fight probably would have went pretty damn well for him. At least he gets one outpost up, we'll say, but that outpost is not going to last long. The last of the Lance is going to be chased away. They can turn around and just torch down the outpost. Hanfi, he'll just have to go back on the defensive. And the frustration for him is like he got one relic. He'll be lucky to get two at this rate. The Wolf is trying to ensure that that is the case, trying to prove me right. Thank you, Wildlife, for being on the side of pigeons. But even after he gets two relics, like it's hard to see him easily getting more. Maybe this one at the backside. It's never going to be a 5-relic game, though. I say that. No. I'd be surprised if Artie lets this one slip. In fact, I guess you have to ask, did Artie even get vision of the relic gathering yet? He should probably know because I feel like a lot of players kind of subtly register in their brain like where the relics were. And if you can't see one of the icons here anymore where it once was, then you're like, uh-oh, what's he done? And yeah, that's exactly why he's going to pull Knight down the south side. Oh, oh. Damn, dodged. All right, we cast the curse that this is going to be a 4-relic game. He might need it as well, considering that he is 16 villages. I'm trying to map out whether he missed villager production. I don't think so. I think this number adds up correctly. Like, Artie sniped out 1 in his own base. He sniped out, what, 3 or 4 when he raided in. And he is playing as the French, so over time he's building them faster. Ambitious. Well, lol. Looks like Artie was quick to recover and find that relic in the end. That's going to force the Lancer to be pulled to the south side. And while that's happening, Artie is going to continue to just stack up his army in the center. Now moving out to the berries to sustain himself. You can see that Artie's trying to delay the farm transition, as players often do. And it's a very important transition to delay in this matchup because although the Mongols build into pastures, and you can say that's kind of comparative farms, they tend to do it in a more beneficial way, it feels like. Like, they're usually setting them up a lot earlier, so they've already done their transition. It's not often that you're 20 minutes into a game and the Mongol player doesn't have a pasture, unless they're playing a timing attack in Feudal. And that means that he just wants to try and leverage the fact that, you know, he has the military advantage right now to not go for that. Because if he does, it's 75 wood per farm. And that's the other ridiculous comparative here. If you think about it, spawn a 250 food source every, was it 2 minutes? Compared to a farm that, like, it only serves 1 villager and it costs 75 wood. I think that's, when you start to put it in that kind of perspective, that you see why it's beneficial. And one thing I like about Artie keeping the pressure up here is that he stops the pastures being pulled here by making this the battlefront. As long as this is a battlefield, there's no logical reasoning why Hamfi should pull these pastures away from the TC. And it means he doesn't get the better production speed on the sheep. Wrap around. Villagers. Oh my god! The ships are out! Wow. Wow. Artie's trying to body block him off. Wait. Yeah. He's pulling him to the side. And that's just an outright good trade for Hamfi. Did Artie think that he could trade with villagers to buy time? Or was that just a panic maneuver? It genuinely looked like he was trying to contain the Lancers, which, you know, it's kind of a very high-risk play, but can kind of work if you have textiles. But without textiles, I am perplexed. And now Artie needs to punish him. He needs to find similar value here. However, I don't see a world in which Hamfi is going to pull his entire villager line to body block knights. Oh my goodness. Instead, he's just going to go all in. Red pass on the front line. Okay, so that's what Artie was going for when he pulled to the left side. I think he was planning to just follow through, but couldn't at the moment. Instead, he's going to go all in now. Red pass here on the wood line, and this wood line is important because look where the next one is. It's not near the TC. Not where you set up. One Lancer riding in. The rest are going to try to respond, but in a choke point that Artie could hold if he's quick about this. Wrap around. Several villagers are going to go down. There's a heavy sacrifice coming out from Artie, but he spreads out. Guards against more Fallen. And once that red pass goes up, Gatling gun mode is going to be activated. I don't remember the last time I got to see an aggressive red pass, but I'm glad I'm going to get her. This is where it gets ridiculous. Watch the Gatling gun fire coming out. Every single villager inside adding another Arbiter. And that is why Hanfi's army is going all the way down to 0 here. Even the Khan being sniped out. The damage on this thing is ridiculous. Just look at the range as well. What is this range? Oh my god. What makes it... Oh my god! This landmark is insane. Oh my good god. And that's why Hanfi had to all in. That's why he had to commit to try and kill it. And that's why Artie went for the play. He forces an entire base pack up and move away because even buildings can't stand against this ridiculous defense. Oh my good god. Hanfi has to be huffing copium right now. How is it that Artie pulls his villagers to defend against a Nightline? He rushes a red pass, he gets butchered on multiple occasions, and yet the lead is not even that big. It's only 9 villagers in favor of Hanfi right now, and it might not even last that long because remember, he lost the entire army underneath the red pass. Villagers retreating towards defense points. And although they'll get inside, remember that they are AFK right now. They're not gathering for you, and the spawn emplacements hadn't been gotten yet. At least they'll finally get into them now, but I can't believe after all that, Artie is somehow even it up. Only 7 villagers between them. Maybe a missed opportunity to snipe out the prayer tent, which could have been a big deal. But my god, this red pass. You don't see it for a long time. You see people go for the safe choice, the College of Artillery, and then you see a game like this. And then you just wonder why people don't. Because it really is that ridiculous. Looks like a few Lancers were able to sneak out from Hanfi's base. Trying to return the favor of pain that Artie has reaped and sowed upon Hanfi. Now an outpost crawling. Artie getting in the trebuchets in the front line. Once these outpost defenses go down, Hanfi's going to be in trouble again because he's not really building the most respectable force here. Only Spearman isn't able to get back into the Lancers yet. In fact, what is the step readout at? It's wheeling up now. Where's it wheeling up to? Ooh. That's his goal plan? I don't like it. That's very dangerous. Meanwhile, you can see Artie, because he's got such a baby-level economy, he's got to try and get maximum value out of it wherever he can as he's moved out into the bore now to sustain him for longer. And all of a sudden, that villager gap is less than 5. It's still bigger economically for Hanfi, though, because remember, he does have the 3 relics. But overall, Artie is very much still in this game. You have to also remember that he's imped up, so every one of his units is more valuable. He does need to be able to afford it first, though. And it looks like he finally got the gold together to get into elite status and has a decent amount of knights left out in the field. And the cool thing is, because of the way they roamed about, getting rid of the last Lancers, now that they're moving back towards the base, by the time they arrive, most of Hanfi's Springald defenses are going to be gone. What would... I clicked a trebuchet and I definitely heard a Mongol there. In fact, Artie, is this planned on the Deerstone? Okay, well, I'll have to move anyway. Feels like it's better to go after the outpost right now. Just get the dive opportunity instead of moving to the racks. Another respectable choice. I just think like the Deerstone was the puzzling part for me. Anything else makes sense here. If you get rid of the outposts, great, you can dive in. If you get rid of the racks, you can't build a defense force. If he spots this northern expansion, my goodness, that could end Hanfi. I think the issue for Hanfi is he's kind of in a tough spot where he's like, I would like to now try and tech up as well. But if I do, I'm not going to be producing military for a long time. And the issue, by the way, with that is, like, you could say he has a respectable quantity of troops right now, but if he stops pushing additional troops, Artie knows. At any stage, if you stop pushing more spearmen from here, it's obvious to your opponent what you're doing, especially when you consider how small both of their ecos are. And in fact, they are now back to being neck and neck. Remember that Artie got even better production rates on those villages by going up to Imperial every 16 seconds now. Trebs just continue to crawl in. Enough from here, they can start sniping out the traction Trebs, actually. Ooh. Gets the stable and almost gets the trebuchet alongside it. Nice. Seems reasonable. Lancers will just try to wrap past this, and RT might just benefit from setting up a defense force back at home with like 4 or 5 knights. Because every time this happens, he has to chase Hamphy across map. And that's exactly what Hamphy needs. He needs to buy time. He needs to draw pressure away. The worst case scenario for him is these trebuchets whittling away at his troops and his base, while the knights are wrapping around on, say, the north side and diving onto his eco again. He's never going to get these trebs. Okay, that's better. Go for the pastures. There isn't much food in reserve for Hamphy right now, to be honest with you. Like, he's got a few sheep to the north side, but if you take out these pastures, that's going to drop fast. Dive in. Spearman. Unable to engage there. It's the red pass. Like, you see the garrison come out straight away. The range on this thing is just absurd. We saw it reaching out over onto this gold line here, for example. We've seen the power of it. And that's the problem for Hamphy right now. Like, he wants to rush in, but if he does, if that is garrison, that red pass will just massacre his troops. And you can see it's reaching out there. I know they move fast, but look at that. Look at what it does. That defense is ridiculous. But it's Imperial Age, it's reasonable. No, this is ridiculous. Look at it. There's so many dead spears. What are you going to do? Like, what is your alternative here? Let's build man-at-arms, let's build lancers. They die just as fast. There's arbaletiers in there. It's not even normie arrows. No. Oh, God. I mean, you killed a villager, but your army's looking pretty small right now. In fact, if you look at raw military pop cap, they're neck and neck, but RT is made up of siege and knights. Those knights start to dive in, chipping away, and all of a sudden, Hamphy now 7 villages behind. I think what Artie meant when he said he doesn't do long games, like, I guess, like, half an hour isn't a long game as we're approaching that mark, but, like, if he does get into long games, he is correct that everyone has no villages at all. Like, he doesn't allow this ridiculous eco boom. It's what makes him so refreshing to watch, where a lot of players will sit back and say, let's all get like 100 villages, and we'll come back and look at this and review it in like an hour. RT's like, no. Let's all lose 100 villages, and we'll come back and review this in like 20 minutes. And now, with the Springles in the mixer as well, he's 1 step ahead of Hamphy. Oh, whoops. That's a heavy loss you can't afford. More pastures going down. That's 150 wood to build each of those. And also, remember that Hamphy can't just amass siege here. He didn't get siege engineering improved. These are all being built out of a single siege workshop, which means any Springald lost is devastating for Hamphy. Oh, oof. Losing the gold as well. Prayer tent goes down. I'm trying to think what the maneuver is that gets Hamphy back in this game. I like the idea of him trying to wrap with a few lancers before, but it always seems to just be falling flat. And I think at this stage, his army is too small for him to make that pull. I think he could have continued that play if he didn't dive the red pass. His attempt to dive the red pass to kill 1 or 2 villages cost him, across the multiple attempts at diving it, I'd say like, what, 20 troops? I think 20 military sounds reasonable. And while 20 military sounds like a really small amount to lose at 29 minutes of the game, we do have to remember that we're only now reaching a point where one of them is about to go beyond 50 eco again, because they've been baby economies for so long. Yeah, you can see Hamphy now wrapping, but even if he dives the eco, RT doesn't have to care. RT can technically just end the game. It's the trebuchets, like he's up to 4. And yeah, they're already under the primary TC. He doesn't know where the step readout is yet, but he can just delete the entire base more casually with less casualties than you can. These Knights charging upon because this is elite Royal Knights you're dealing with. They don't care about the spears. And Handfeet, like, he's redirected. He's going wider and wider here. Like, where is your angle of approach here? How the hell are you going to get in on this siege line without dying to a red pass? That's my question. Answer? You aren't. You literally can't. If you dove these trebs where they stand and Artie doesn't pack them up, this red pass is probably still reaching half your troops at least. The only good news about it right now is the villagers aren't that close. They're not going to insta-garrison, but it won't take them long. TC packed up on fire. I always love it when you get this kind of display where the TC's on fire like this. Even better when the sheep are following like, oh, look, an oven for us to jump in. Yay, kebab! TC gonna be unpacked here, but Knights now stacking, getting ready to ride in. Yeah, I think Hamfee's reached the end of the road here. An admirable attempt, but damn, was that a sick play by Artie. After the villager throwaway, the way he used them to try and get a net lead in the Knight department, then a push forward with a red pass, and everything from there has been pristine out of him, showing you exactly why this landmark needs to be respected. It needs to be thought about more. It's crazy to think that we are seeing an Imperial French player win off the back of the trebuchets alone after he reaches Imperial, but it really is that type of game. It's such a strong defense. It's so hard to breach. And now, without a TC, without any way of making his way past this Knight line, it feels like this is done and dusted. Hamfee gives in.